Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Gemstone Legends video. In this video, I wanted to talk about basically about the arena, some of the tactics used, what the meta is, some changes we've seen there, and I have a very special guest from my guild, Insidious Gaming, who also has a YouTube channel that I'll put a link for in the description, but he's sort of an arena ace in our guild, and you'll often see him in the top 5 or the top 10. And he's going to share some of his insight as well, because I think he's actually much more experienced in the arena than I am at this point. And so I wanted to bring him on to share some of those tips with you guys and create a resource or maybe sort of arena guide from our perspective to help both new players and intermediate and advanced players alike. As a quick note, we are looking for some members to join our guild. So if you're interested and are willing to use 2 guild check-ins per day, 2 raid boss flags, and have a power of about 115,000, I'll put some information in the description as well. And we would welcome any new members that are able to come in at that level. So if you haven't tried Gemstone Legends yet, come check it out and play alongside me. It's another really fun and deep strategy RPG like Empires and Puzzles, but with some fun new twists, and a lot of people from Empires and Puzzles have already joined. Not only can you help out the channel by using the download link in the description of this video, but if you enter the code #Spock_2021 hashtag in the global chat, you can get a nice starter bonus including gold, gems, gold scrolls, and a free epic hero Elidor, all valued at about 50 bucks. Once you join, you'll also get access to a set of beginner events where you can earn another epic hero Soliana, a 5-star legendary set of equipment, which is what you use to boost the stats and performance of your heroes, and a platinum scroll for another epic or legendary hero in the game. Those links and codes are in the description down below. Just be sure to enter that code in the global chat after finishing the tutorial within 24 hours of downloading the game, and I look forward to seeing you all there. So, without further ado, Insidious, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Spock. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Gemstone Legends? I think a lot of people have come from Empires and Puzzles, and I'm just curious to hear your story as well.
Yeah, I started playing E&P a while ago, and it was always fun, but I feel like it'd be so much more. Ironically enough, your video on Gemstone is what brought me over to giving it a shot, and from there, it's kind of history.
Awesome. So one thing that's always stood out to me with regard to the arena is like one of the things I still play Empires and Puzzles as well. And one of the things I really enjoy is the rating and the hero synergies and stuff like that. It's very different in Gemstone Legends. I'm still at a point where it's hard for me to assess whether a new hero is going to be good because they fit together so differently than Empires and Puzzles. Like there's still some of the core stuff like defense down is always good, attack up is always good, but the teams that you see in arena and the stuff that works sometimes surprises me because I'm coming from that Empires and Puzzles background. Did you have that same experience, and was that sort of a hurdle that you just moved over?
Yeah, it's definitely different, to say the least.
Yeah.
Biggest thing you see with synergies is, you always need some kind of immunity removal if they're running immunity, which almost everybody runs immunity of some kind.
Uh-huh.
A lot of support, and a big thing that you see now more than anything is tanks in the arena.
Mm-hmm. So that's a question I have too, is like in positioning heroes, they still like in Empires and Puzzles, tank was always the center hero in the formation. And since the tiles on the board can hit multiple people, that was the person to absorb most of it. With Gemstone Legends, is tank just a classification of hero at this point, or does positioning matter since the board is sort of played differently? Because I hear people talking about tanks a lot, but I also see that Gemstone Legends has these classifications for heroes that they have definitions for, like Warden or can't think of any other off the top of my head, but
Bruiser, attacker,
yeah,
wizard.
yeah. So is
Yeah.
is tank a position, or is it just a classification?
It's more of a classification. Positioning is still relevant for your team.
Uh-huh.
In Gemstone Legends, your ability cycles go from left to right.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as positioning goes, that's still relevant, but your tank is just a classification. All they're going to be doing is having a buff, which is taunt,
Okay.
and it's just going to make the entire enemy team attack them.
Oh, I didn't know that all tanks in Gemstone Legends were taunt heroes. That's interesting.
Yeah, for the most part. Najjar, Martin, Alex,
Yeah. I think there's
they're always going to be taunt heroes.
yeah.
Emmett is a good 3-star rare one.
Okay. So as we talk about some of the more dominant parts of the meta, I have definitely seen this, and I'm sure that you have to an even higher degree. How much have you seen the meta shift since you've been interested in the arena? Because it seems like what dragons people are using, what heroes people are using has changed a lot. And like Empires and Puzzles, there's kind of always a race to copy what seems to be the best formation. So have you seen the defense meta shift a lot since you've been paying attention to the arena?
Oh man, I could go on for days. Yeah. When I first started playing, it was all about speed, and I guess you could say kind of like crowd control type abilities. Freeze and silence were big, mostly freeze.
Uh-huh.
People were using the blue dragon a lot because
Yeah.
you have your speed down and the 50% chance to freeze, or a percentage to freeze.
Yeah.
Then it became all about dots. People just went dot crazy. Zarkons everywhere, Kusai. Still, and then people were running the black dragon, purple
Uh-huh.
dragon. And now that we have Martin in here, who's immune to poison, self heals, does all this good stuff,
Uh-huh.
and we have the damage increase in arena from 3.33 to 10%.
Mm.
You've seen this shift towards people just having super tanky builds where the games are going into like turn 60. Sophias are hitting for like 30k damage every turn.
Yeah.
People are using the green dragon, and you have one attacker, maybe two,
Yeah.
and you're just trying to one shot the team 60 turns in. It's boring. It takes forever. It's not a good time.
Yeah. So do you think that that has changed because, like, with a new game, it just takes time to find the best synergies? And that's something I've talked about in my videos is like, it's kind of an exciting time to be playing the game because there's a lot yet to be discovered. So do you think that's what's shifted the meta over time? Or do you think it's just been as new heroes come out, it changes things considerably? Like, is it more that the heroes being released are changing the meta, or more that people are still figuring out what is the best strategy?
I think it's a little combination of both, as well as like game updates
Hmm.
with the developers, changing how mana gain works
Yeah.
with how your team is built and how many of the same color you have.
Hmm.
New heroes, there's always going to be new synergies that come
Yeah.
out, but I mean, there's currently what 240, 50 legends.
Hmm.
That's a lot of abilities, a lot of builds.
Yeah.
Um, I currently got some secret ones I'm working on right now,
Oh, nice.
but yeah, I think it's just people having the time to ascend heroes to 6-star. No, it takes time, takes assets, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
and to get all these synergies to work, it's a testing process. I think the
Sure.
longer the games go on, you see a lot more unique builds come out
Yeah.
for what's going to work,
Yeah.
as well as with new heroes.
So a question I have to ask based on what you're just describing there and what it's like at the top. One, I imagine that's something that they're aware of and they're like, well, we don't really want it to take 60 turns and just to be a one-shot fest with the boosted damage. So I'm sure they're thinking about that. But what what keeps you there fighting at the top with those difficulties? Because there's a lot of levels and in Empires and Puzzles, cup dropping's a thing. Some people just wanted the easy revenges. What keeps you there fighting tooth and nail for every medal at the top?
Oh, it's exciting, man. I don't
Okay.
know. I guess I've just always been competitive.
Uh,
Uh, it's a game that's supposed to be fun.
uh,
I see it as like I don't really lose anything for trying.
yeah.
Outside of the raid boss progression and end game, arenas, the other hurdle.
Yeah.
Once you can auto farm Giant and Phoenix on 20, where you go.
Yeah.
I like seeing what everybody else is capable of, and the interesting builds and teams that people are making right now.
Hmm.
That's kind of what keeps me there.
Hmm.
Testing myself, making out new teams.
Yeah. I guess the medals are a nice perk as well if you're finishing, in the, I don't know where you can finish in the top at the end of the cycle, but if you're finishing in the top 10, then you're getting a bunch of medals. That's more points in your cabinet, more permanent stat boosts. So I think that's probably something that keeps
Sure,
a lot of people there is like
sure.
you gain more dominance just by being dominant, essentially.
Right, yeah. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, yeah. So we talked about some of these changes in the meta. Did you have a personal favorite to play against? Like any that you, because I'm thinking about I remember this player, I can't remember his name, used to use like 4 Zarkons on defense, and I was like, oh, that's pretty crazy.
Oh, Behemoth. Yeah, I know that
Yeah, I
guy.
imagine they were pretty fast. But what was Tessix always popular, or do you think that like the kind of bubble burst on Tessix and people were like, oh my God, this guy is so good against these kinds of teams, and that was something that contributed to the fall of that synergy? Because like Zarkon is still super dominant, and I see people's attack teams where they can sort of auto farm with double Zarkon and like a Sigil and Nefri where you're just boosting your survivability because that dot can stack 10 times and you're doing huge damage. So what do you think caused that to fall? Was it just immunity?
Uh, Not so much immunity because there are ways around it. You've got Theo, you got Chloe. They all remove immunity.
Uh-huh.
Chloe's even better because she puts curse on and will constantly eat buffs.
Uh-huh.
But this new thing with Strybog, I like to call it pseudo immunity,
Yeah.
where you just stack buffs. You're limited to 10 buffs or debuffs per legend. It doesn't matter how many of each you got. You can only have
Yeah.
10. So you get this kind of pseudo immunity, as I like to call it, where you just got speed buffs, mana buffs, aurora buffs, attack, and a health shield.
Mm-hmm.
So Zarkon can only stack up, 2, maybe 3 poison and a defense down. But your
Mm-hmm.
defense down doesn't matter if you have a Martin or Alex on your team with Fortify or a defense up buff. So it's a lot harder for it to play that strategy now than it was, we'll say, a month ago.
Yeah. So how long have you been pushing hard in the arena for? Is this something that's come together in the last couple months, or is this something, I'm not sure how long you've been playing actually. So I'm curious how long you've been sort of focused on pushing as high as you can.
I'd say probably about the last month. Yeah, halfway through the last reset when I realized that like I'm in the top 100. Everybody that's like revenging against me is just losing, and I'm kind of constantly climbing.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me see how far I can get, and then I'm just kind of constantly held top 10 uh, since then.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty impressive. Um, so something else I want to talk about is I want to do this as I think I mentioned in the opening of this video, at a beginner and sort of a more intermediate advanced level. But what are some tips that you would give starting with the kind of intermediate advanced players who maybe have a lot of heroes, have a lot of equipment, have been playing for a while, but can't break through that barrier? What sort of advice would you give to a player like that who's looking to sort of do what you did a month ago, figure out how to climb higher, and they can't quite put the pieces together on their own?
Uh, Obviously, board play is going to be a big thing, and I'll touch on that again. But I think the biggest thing that separates maybe your intermediate from advanced is your defense team. The revenge is a big thing. It's where you're going to lose or maintain most of your points.
Hmm.
Um, if you fight someone, win, and then they go to revenge and they lose, you just double your points.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa, you could just break even and gain nothing, or even lose some depending upon how high or low they were.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key to a good defense team is make it simple and not complicated for the auto player to play it.
Mm,
I'm not talking about, running dot teams like Zarkons, Theos, all this stuff. Make it simple. If you look at all the top teams right now, they're simple, isolated abilities in a vacuum that just do good things.
mm,
Martin heals himself, fortify and taunt. Auroras, they bubble, give attack up. Strabog gives you mana and speed. You have an attacker, he attacks things.
mm,
And Sigil cleanses dots if you get any or any debuffs and gives you more mana.
uh,
They're isolated abilities in a vacuum, and that's going to make your defense team very strong and hard to beat. That's kind of like the intermediate to advanced level. As far as board play goes, learning how to tile defensively, which what I mean is if you say there's so many gems on the board that you need, but you can't get to all of them, and your opponent has 2 attacks coming up, try, instead of matching all of them, shifting them away to corners of the board so that the auto player for your opponent can't match them.
yeah,
This gives you mana denial for your opponent's heroes and could potentially give you a bigger mana boost on your turn, depending on how the board drops.
yeah, yeah. That one you just touched on seems like one of the biggest things, and one of the things I really liked about Gemstone Legends over Empires and Puzzles is like you're sharing the board with them, and so if you're the attacker facing off against AI, you're in control there. You know, you can't control what's going to fall into the board when you make matches, but I've seen in some of your videos, you're like, all right, I don't want to match any more of my color this turn. I don't want to match any more at all because I don't want anything to fall in. I'm just going to shift some random tiles around because you don't have to make matches. Only your first move has to be a match. And then you can just move stuff around randomly. And so
Correct.
that factor of like that mana denial thing, where if they don't have any of their colors on the board, they can't do anything. You know, they can still hit you for damage and they can still mix up the board and they will make matches, but there's a lot of control you can have there. And I think that is huge. And that's one of the coolest things about this because that brings a lot more of the outcome under your control from my perspective. Do you agree with that?
Right. Yeah. 100%. You're not forced to make any move in Gemstone Legends except for your very first move has to be a match.
Yeah.
So if you can isolate a three stack of gems that's not going to fall into a cascade somewhere, great, do that. And then just find 2 gems of the same color that are next to each other and just swipe them back and forth until all your moves are gone. You've made your turn. You haven't cleared the board. Hopefully your opponent has no color gems that they need.
Yes.
And you're
Yeah. Something else that just stood out to me as you're saying that is that I've noticed a lot of people still play on autoplay. And I think autoplay is alluring because it's a lot faster. But in terms of advanced tips, if you want to get better at raid bosses or arena, maybe not farming, maybe the rifts in the map is all fine. But if you want to get better at those kind of those 2 aspects, you have to be making your own matches because like against the raid boss, you can, some of them will gain, I don't know if it's all of them, but they'll gain mana each turn. So you can't stop them forever that way, but you can certainly slow them down with that mana denial tactic. So I think that is a really important part about advancing in the game overall.
100%.
Yeah.
The raid bosses gain 20 to 40 mana a turn right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So then on the heels of that, if you can think this far back, what sort of tips would you give for more beginner players or people that are looking to break into the arena? Because, as I've mentioned before, it's something that you want to use all of your arena tokens or flags for, whatever they call them here, because of those boosts to the cabinet. So if you are a player who's struggling to get started with that, do you have can you think back to when you were getting started and what advice you might give to players who are just starting out and figuring out how to get into that?
Oh man, that's a great one. I know we touched on using the auto player
Yeah.
to kind of transition into my point. The auto player is an 85% accurate computer. So 15% of the time it's going to make bad moves, but the rest of the time it's going to make great moves.
Mm.
So if you want to auto in the arena at an early on level and kind of learn the patterns, because it is different from, Empires and Puzzles where you can match in different directions instead of just straight across or up and down.
Yeah.
That's going to give you an advantage there where you can learn where you're matching your gems at. Also, after you're doing that, learning how to stack a cascade, because you might not need mana so much as you just need extra damage. So after your first match, if every gem that falls matches again, you're gaining an increase in damage, 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 30 or 40%. And that could be the difference, if you're critting for 2, 3,000 to now make it 3, 4, 5,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I would say, practice, looking for a cascade fall, matching, not necessarily large amounts of gems, but the right pattern of gems, more or less.
Yeah, something else that's great advice. Something else that I've found that you may agree with is, unlike Empires and Puzzles where I was changing teams constantly, in getting started with the arena, I just found a good team and I used it for everything. And it worked. The color advantage seemed to be less of an issue. So like I got a taunt hero early on. I pulled, I think Leopold was my first legendary pull, who I still haven't fully ascended. And then I got Alex or Alexander after that. And that made a huge difference. So I just tried to get like a couple hard hitters. Had Alex on there. I used Gwyn as early as I could. And then I just fought every team with that. And I think that can work. So you don't have to overcomplicate things. Maybe I think as you get to higher levels, you have to be a lot more tactical with your team composition. But did you have that same experience where you just kind of found a good team, or were you often changing around teams just because that was more fun for you?
I would change around my attack team, but as far as occasionally, but my defense team was pretty much consistent. And more often than not, my defense team and my attack team were the same team. Like I would just always go back to it because it was fun for me, and that's what the point of the game is to begin with. Just have fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you don't really need to change your team around too much. You can experiment. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't want to make this video too long. I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff, and I don't want that to get too lost in here. So if you guys enjoyed this video and this conversation, let us know in the comments, and we can consider doing more stuff like this in the future. And then also make sure you go and subscribe to Insidious's YouTube channel. He's got some really great arena advice, more than we could cover in just one video. So make sure you check that out. And do you want to leave us with a favorite arena team that you have right now for people that have stuck around and watched till the end? You don't have to go top secret if you're not ready to reveal those yet, but if you have a particular favorite, that I'd love to hear that.
Particular favorite. I don't necessarily have all of these heroes. I wish I did. They elude me forever. But 2 Sophias, a Strybog, a Nefri, and a Sigil. I mean, that team just seems so strong.
Yeah.
You can just chain abilities so fast that it almost feels impossible to beat. And when you do, though, it feels so satisfying.
Yeah.
So that's currently my favorite team I've seen.
Yeah. Sophia is quite tough to kill. That increased defense and then having all the survivability of the rest of the team, that's a hard one to come back from.
Right. And she's immune to Death Down, which is really, really relevant.
Yeah. And I like how she applies defense down before her hit. So you get the benefit of that on her hit itself. And then, she can apply it to everyone if she happens to get a kill. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty tough team to get, but a very cool sounding team. I do have a few of those. I guess I have all of them except the second Sophia. I've had a good.
You don't even need her.
Yeah. Had a good streak of pulls lately. Well, thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate your insight and joining to provide more information to this community. I think it will be well received, and maybe we can do some more stuff like this in the future. So thank you so much.
I'd love it. This has been a blast, man. And check me out, guys. Insidious Gaming.
Yep, go subscribe right now. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe on this as well. And if you're interested in checking out Gemstone Legends, which you definitely should, there's some information on how to do that in the description of this video as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.